Here you are. I was wondering when you'd arrive, but our guests have arrived. We are almost ready. Just a little drop of this. There we go. Oh, much better, much better. And I couldn't have done it without you, Book. I know. It seems as if it was just yesterday you were created. So we start with the base of our book. I originally was going to use an actual book for this, but ultimately decided to use cardboard because it will make everything lighter and it will make the moving eye mechanism easier to construct. After cutting many layers of cardboard, I attached them all together using hot glue. Of course. Next, I cut 2 pieces of cardboard that were slightly bigger than everything else. This is going to serve as the front and back cover, as well as the spine. I love hot glue, obviously. Now for the eye. I used a wooden craft ball to trace around where the eye is going to go, making sure to leave a little bit of extra space for eye movement as well as the eyelid. Behold, an Easter egg. This will be the eyelid. I took the bottom half of the egg and I cut it in half. The thought is to make the eyelid move as well. So I used a wood burning tool to add tiny little holes in the sides to act as a sort of hinge that I will then use a wooden stick skewer thing for the hinge part. I used air-dry foam clay for the embellishments, you know, these things. This stuff is awesome, but it does take several days for it to dry completely. the clay was dry, I used cardboard for the bases, and then I attached them with, can you guess? Hot glue. Now we paint. For the base coat, I used silver metallic. And once that was dry, I used regular black paint to sort of dry brush on top in order to give it that sort of old, rustic, dirty look, kind of. Aged. Aged is the word I was looking for there. Back to the eye. I used a drill to drill in one side of the eye, making sure to be careful not to go all the way through. This is so I can stick the stick for the eye mechanism. And more painting. So I'm not a realism type painter. This was the best that I could do. Just lots and lots of layers. Okay, remember when I started working on the eyelid and I created those tiny holes for the hinges? Now it's time to actually attach it to the book. Since we used cardboard, it was really easy to stick the kebab stick all the way through the cardboard and attach it to the hole of the eyelid of the inner part of the eye. For the book cover, I found this pleather skirt from a thrift store. After ripping apart the fabric, I used the inner lining of the skirt to line the inner parts of the eye. This will help to protect the eyeball from any rubbing, as well as cover up any unwanted areas. The skirt had a really interesting slit in it that I decided to use for the eye, like eyelid part. So I started here and I worked my way outward, attaching the fabric in small sections at a time. Now it's time for the stitching. I used a plastic threader with a big eye and some small twine to stitch the fabric pieces together. This was the most time-consuming part of the project. If the fabric had been like actual leather or more difficult to poke through, I probably would have had to use like a nail or something. But thankfully, the fabric was easy enough to poke through with the plastic threader. Now we can finally add the snakes, the little embellishments. The ring around the eye and the little jewel clasp section. For the jewel part, I used a brass brad because that's all I had. I also used some little skeleton hands from Dollar Tree. I painted these the same as everything else. While those embellishment sections were drying, I used a Mod Podge around the stitching areas. The fabric I used was a little fragile, so I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to tear any further, as well as making sure that the stitching would actually stay in place. Let's pop in that eyeball, shall we? And there it is, complete at last.